Welcome back.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hello, me hearties.
Oi. No. Why are you talking like that?
Oh, no.
Ahoy, me hearties.
Yeah. I don't, every time I do that, no one can see me.
I
but
don't know how to
put
respond
my
to that.
finger up like it's a hook.
How do I respond to that question? Hello.
Hi.
Like,
Hello.
Well, okay, so the reason I did that, to say welcome back like that, was for a few reasons. But today, we're going to be speaking with a homeschooling expert, Miss
Ooh.
Laura Seymore.
yay.
And we are going to introduce her in a second. But first, it was Talk Like a Pirate Day.
I don't know how to do it, matey.
That's good. Say, ahoy, me hearties. I like the hearties.
Hearties.
That means like friends.
So it's Talk Like a Pirate Day?
Yes.
All right.
And I have a way to help us through this a little bit.
Thank goodness.
Okay. I have a joke.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Don't look at my answers.
I won't. I'm not.
Okay. You have to say them with an accent, though.
Okay.
Okay. Why does it take a pirate so long to learn the alphabet?
Arr, I drank too much rum.
That would be one reason. That seems like a very logical reason, actually. This is a joke, so it's a play on words. Oh, my gosh. Anyone? Any guesses?
I bet they get stuck on R.
Oh,
Oh.
you're very close.
Ah.
Because they spend years at sea.
Oh.
Ah.
I love it.
Okay, one more. What does the pirate say when his leg gets stuck in the freezer?
Brr.
Ooh, that's a
Oh,
good guess.
Laura's good at this.
Except I didn't get it right.
No, she's wrong.
I don't know.
Stuck in the freezer.
Shiver me timber.
Oh.
Yeah, 'cause his wooden leg.
That's very good.
Timber, get
I
it?
Yeah.
think that's awesome.
Okay.
Good.
So clearly, Katie is the pirate expert
It's
and
'cause
is the
I
best
took
at
all my
speaking like a
notes.
pirate.
Well, I'm just picking ones that I know how to say with the accent, and it sounds a lot better than I'm actually am at that. So maybe now and then during this podcast, we'll just throw out random pirate speak.
Okay. And actually, Pirate Day is September 19th,
Yes.
2022. So we figured we are going to talk a little bit like a pirate today. So, I mean,
And
once in a while, not the whole.
You have like 3 weeks of me doing this.
Oh.
I know. You're gonna love it.
I'm
Okay.
going to make you walk the plank.
Ah, there she blows.
Those are all we know. Okay.
Yep. Okay, now we're
All right. So,
Blimey. Okay, sorry. Okay, so now we got that out of the way.
yeah.
We're gonna go back to our topic of what we are actually here for.
Yes.
Which, surprisingly, is not talking like pirates.
No. No. We're here to talk about homeschooling, which is something that it's pretty common and a lot of people do it. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about homeschooling. So we have a guest today, Laura Seymore. And Laura is works at Brainspring as an instructor. But I have known Laura for 13 years.
Whoa.
I can't believe I've known you
I
that
know.
long. And we worked together at a school in the Learning Center. And Laura was an amazing, or is and still is, of course, an amazing educator, and worked with the kids in the school who were struggling in all areas, in reading, in math, in all areas. And she did an amazing job with them. So Laura's background is that she was a K-12 special ed teacher, and she is also certified through the National Institute of Learning Development, which is an intervention program for children with learning disabilities, especially reading disabilities. And so she used that program. I saw her use that program, and it was quite amazing to transform kids. There were kids that came back to Laura when they graduated and told her that now they're going to college. And if it wasn't for Laura, they would never have been able to do that. And I witnessed that firsthand, so it is quite amazing.
It doesn't really surprise me.
No,
though,
it doesn't, not at all.
because she gets because Laura is one of our instructors.
Yes.
And she gets amazing feedback from
Yeah.
participants about how well I mean, even teaching adults, and it's different.
Yes.
And so
But Laura
that doesn't
did
surprise-
homeschool. So that's why we have
Yes.
Laura here. Laura homeschooled her kids for about 20 years.
and she survived.
And she survived. She actually has 7 children and has homeschooled nearly all of them over the years. And so we're here just to kind of pick Laura's brain and ask Laura, how in the heck did you do that, Laura?
Oh,
How did you do it? Tell us about it.
Well, that is definitely the question that I would get the most often. So to be clear, I do have 7 children, but I didn't ever homeschool all 7 at once. But I still was parenting 7 children. So maybe I was homeschooling 4 and had 3 in diapers, which did happen.
yeah.
But I did it, as I look back, I think maybe in some ways I was a little too strict and too organized, but it is what got me through it. That we had a schedule. I was talking to my kids over the weekend, telling them I was going to do this. And I said, what do you remember? And they were like, yeah, well, we never got to sleep in. We always had to be up and doing school by 8 o'clock. And we took, this was breakfast time, and then it was school time, and then it was break, and then it was lunch. And, that it was completely, it was no free for all. We were on it, and we knew.
That's important, though.
Yeah, we had a job to do. And we weren't going to play until our job was done.
Well, it's send that message very clearly.
Yes,
So
yeah.
this is work
Yeah.
time, and then
And it was true for them, and it was true for me. If people would call and they'd be like, "Oh, you're just home today. Can we bring the kids over, or do you want to have coffee?" And I was like, "No, actually, we're schooling, and so when school's over,
we're working.
then we can do that." And my husband reminded me of something. He said, "Yeah," and I remember, it was like you schooled all day, and then when they were done with school, then it was time for housework and cooking and things that you couldn't get done during that time. And then in the evenings, it was research. What was a better program, or what curriculum should we be using, or how should we be testing, or, when it was time to put the kids in school and which grade, and all of those researchy things. It was completely consuming.
Oh, yeah.
You were working 24 hours a day.
It really was. And I do remember being stressed. I mean, it wasn't like I felt like my reputation and their reputation was on the line. I wasn't going to homeschool for 5 years and have teachers receive my students then when I put them in school and go, "What have you been doing?"
Right.
I wanted my kids to show that they had been well educated.
They were very
them.
lucky to have you. I mean, because you're talking about the schedule, and I think just having a schedule, just as a very quick point. I mean, that's such a small piece of it, but kids thrive on that. I thrive on routine and schedule, and then. With teachers, you have to plan at the end of the day and do up. So
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
So that would
kids
be
are
a
so
trait
lucky.
that you would, not everybody is going to be as organized as you were, but
Right.
that was probably a trait that got you through it. That's what you needed.
It absolutely did. And the other thing was, you make friends with other homeschooling families, so you get to see all different ways that people homeschool. And I would never say that I did it right, that somehow I did it better than all the other homeschooling families. I did what worked for our family.
Right.
And for our family, with as many children as we had, in order for all the kids to get what they needed, we had to have structure and organization. I wouldn't have been able to do it. And the other thing was, I didn't want to be schooling all day. We started at 8, and by 2, we were done, unless there was something unusual. The kids didn't have homework. When we were done, homework is not a funny term,
Yeah.
I know.
but there were
Doing it at
homeschooling
home.
families that had homework. It was like
Wow.
you did your schoolwork during the day, and then when we were done, then you still had other things to do. But I was not about that.
Right.
I was like, when you're done, we're done at 2, and you're done. And the only reason you're going to go past 2 is if you haven't made good use of your time. So every once in a while, like I'd have a child that had a difficult day, and when my husband would come home, I'm like, I'm done. Your turn. The math needs to get finished, and I cannot do anymore.
Yeah.
And so that would happen. But that would, the kids all say that made it so good for them. Like they knew that they had a job to do, and they would work through it steadily. And if I was busy with one child and they needed help, then they went on to something that they could do independently. And their goal was to be done. And I remember sometimes there would even be something special, and I'd go, look, we want to go to the zoo at noon if we get our work done. And those kids would be up by 7, plowing through their work, so that by noon we could get to the zoo. And then they had the afternoons to be kids.
Yeah.
Everybody had to help with the house. Everybody had to help with cooking and jobs, and everybody, just like any family. But for the most part, they had afternoons to just enjoy.
And these expectations were laid out to them, I'm
Yes.
sure. So they knew
Oh yeah.
what was expected, how it was
Yep.
going to go for the day.
And they corrected work that they did poorly. Anything that they didn't do right, they had to correct. I wasn't really going to keep going if they hadn't mastered their work. And one of the children, when it was one of the girls, when she went to school, when it was time for her to go to school, it wasn't really her choice. It was what needed to happen for the family. And she came to me and she said, "But when I'm done with school and I come home, can I still draw and write stories?" Because that was her favorite thing to do when she
Right.
was done with school at home, is
Yeah.
she'd draw and write stories. And I was like,
So that kind
Yes.
of is a good lead into what kind of student would be a really good homeschooling candidate.
that's such an interesting question, because with 7 children, I had all different kinds. One of my children, and I'm going to try really hard to keep them nameless because they don't need,
Sure.
and I'm proud of all of them. One of them was one that I probably wouldn't have guessed would have been a great homeschooling candidate. This one was super extroverted and physical and loved sports. And as I see now, I think that I probably would have done better to put that one in school earlier. That one was homeschooled until middle school, but got an excellent education. And the interesting thing too is one of the children was very, very good in language arts, and very average in fine motor, handwriting, math, sciences. And so that one sailed through the language arts like super fast and really, really well. And the others stayed on grade level. But that was one of the advantages of homeschooling, I felt like, is if you had kids that were really capable of excelling in an area, there was nothing holding them back. And they could do that. And they had to stay on grade level with everything else because I made them.
Right.
But those advanced things, and even I think about the fact that now I train teachers on how to teach reading, and the different ways that I taught my kids how to read. I had one child who we spent all of kindergarten learning all of the letter names and sounds, and at the end of the year, that child knew 0. Not one single one stuck. And so the next year we started over. And that child went on to become an English major.
There you go.
Wow.
And then another child who I was like, I don't think I'm going to teach reading so early. I felt like maybe that was not something that I wanted to do. That child taught themselves how to read.
Yeah.
Like literally.
Just came
It
naturally.
came like, and I have very, very, very rarely seen that.
Yes.
And then a couple others that had more significant learning challenges had to be taught like the whole piece by piece by piece by piece and mastered it that way. So lots of different ways. And that was a nice thing about homeschooling. I had one child who, after that one, had learned all their letters and all their letter sounds and had just begun, like early kindergarten reading. Had this whole stack of books. We called them the Kipper books. They were Oxford readers, and they were like early readers from England. They were cool books. I loved them. And that child jumped on their bunk bed. The bedroom was near the kitchen, and said, "I'm going to read these books today." And I said, "Oh, you know what? Those are pretty tough. I don't think you're maybe not quite ready for those. We'll keep going, and we'll get." And that one said, "No, I'm going to read these today," and sat on their bunk bed and said, "What does SAID say, Mom?" And I said, "This is said, okay." And what does and just spelled out word after word after word after word. And I am not kidding. After about like hours, I'm doing all my work. I'm homeschooling the other kids. After hours of that, had clicked. You know how when reading clicks for their kids,
Yeah.
it had clicked, and that was the beginning
Wow.
of that
That's
one's
crazy.
reading. Yeah,
That's
it
very
was
cool.
wild. So I would never have recommended that, as a reading program.
Yeah, right. A technique.
Well, you actually made and we were talking before we were actually started this whole session, but you had kind of summed up in a really nice way when we had asked you about traits or what kind of student would be a good fit for homeschooling, and you had kind of summed it up in a way that it just. Do you remember what you
Yes.
said?
I said it's not really so much the student as the way you modify schooling for that student. Like I had children who were completely content to do school and stay home, and never, to this day, they're homebodies. They're quiet. They like to be home. They like their family. They sometimes get accused of being antisocial. They're not antisocial. They're quiet introverts. And they loved it and literally were in tears when it was time for them to go to school. And then I had others who, as soon as school was done, it was, can I call this friend? And can we have that person over? And can we go to do this? And so modifying that to help each of the kids get what they needed. There are homeschoolers who do all their homeschooling in groups. They have co-ops and they have all kinds of group events. And for some of my kids, that was a plus. And for some of them, they were like, "No, thank you. Do not want it."
When you just said that, I just thought of, my grandma who went to school in a one-room schoolhouse. And that's basically what you're doing when you're homeschooling.
Yes.
There's your one-room schoolhouse with multiple ages of kids, multiple abilities, having to modify and accommodate everything you do. I mean, that's
Yeah.
Well,
what
and
we hope some school teachers in school learn to do better as well. Is that modifying piece, that accommodating piece. Sometimes it's not always apparent how to do that.
Well, and I was
in school.
Yeah, I was gonna say too that it takes a very special kind of person to do homeschooling, but like you were saying with your own children, it's not a one size fits all. You have to modify. So I was gonna ask, what kind of parent, like what are good traits in a parent to homeschool? But because you were very scheduled and which I think is amazing, and had routines, and this is time for, school, this is work time, and then afterwards. I think it takes a very special person, and it's probably different for everybody, but what might have been like the most helpful thing, traits that you had in order to homeschool all of them?
So probably similar traits that it just takes to be a good parent. Like I had a stable home. I had a solid marriage. My husband is not high needs, and I'm typically not either. I didn't have compelling outside requirements. Like later in life, I had a mother-in-law with Alzheimer's. I had a mother with dementia. I had, all kinds of things that would have really train wrecked that. I just had my family. I didn't have to work outside the home. I didn't have to worry that, that me not working outside the home would somehow compromise our financial stability. And I think all of those are super important. We had a home that was big enough that everybody could have a little space, if they wanted an animal or if they wanted to set up a racetrack or if they wanted to build a big Lego structure or if they, that they were able to do those kind of things. We had a lot of outdoor space and, the kids loved to be outside and to dress up in costume period clothing and pretend that they were, characters from books or people living in other times. And, we spent lots and lots of time outside. The kids loved it. One of the children said, yes, I did love learning outside. And I remember having to do schoolwork in the summertime because in the summer, we didn't school year round entirely, but they all had a little bit of work to do every day in the summer, maybe a half an hour.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want them to lose it.
Yeah.
I was pretty, I was pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
You know,
I think the most important thing you said out of all those wonderful things that you were able to enjoy is that you didn't have any outside, anything on the outside, any outside responsibilities, basically.
Yes, right,
I mean,
right.
your brain was
yes,
on one job, and that was to school your kids. And so it's not to say that if you don't have to live in a big house and you don't have to have, but I think that first piece of not having outside responsibilities is probably a really important thing. I mean,
yeah,
when you
and
think
even
about,
so, it's still, I still did feel, I mean, I don't want people to feel like, oh golly, that was such an easy life, just homeschooling, but it wasn't. I was always under the pressure of, oh my goodness, do I haven't, did I cook the things that I needed to cook? Did I remember to grocery shop? And I have to make that phone call and I have to plan this, this lesson or order this book or, or commit to this trip or not, or, it was a heavy thing.
All-consuming.
Yes.
Really, I mean.
Yeah. When I went to work after I was done schooling and I went to school to teach, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm only teaching. And I love it. And it wasn't that it was now so easy. You still have all these children
Right.
you're responsible for, but I wasn't always teaching and thinking of
yes.
this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
And when you were listing all of those things, I was thinking, okay, a school teacher gets up, goes to school. Her whole day is consumed with her teaching.
Yes.
And I'm sure when she goes home at night, she has to think
yes.
about what she's going to get for the next day
Yes.
for school. And then she might have a family at home who she's also taking care of, or he. And so all of the, even teachers who teach in the school have those responsibilities. But I think yours is when you homeschool, it's all in the home. I mean, it's like there's no, it's not, it's not compartmentalized.
Yes.
And all simultaneously happening
at
at
the
once.
same time. Yes.
Yeah.
So everybody, all those responsibilities are still there for a homeschooler as they are for an educator in a
Yes.
school.
Yes.
It's like time.
It's
Time
yes.
is the piece
Yeah.
that the trait, I guess,
And all of those
that
things
you have to have in
Exactly.
order to do this.
Yeah, and you have to. I mean, it all your time is just blends into the next thing, you know. And when you go to work outside the home, you have a little break when you're driving to school, and you have a little break, and those are the things that you probably just didn't have, you know.
Right.
And I can see how it would be.
I think I would be like, we're going on another field trip today, kids. Where do you want to go? But that made me think of it because you did do like field trips, and you said that you did groups outside of the home, like homeschooling groups. What was your favorite field trip that you took the kids on?
Oh, golly. So for several years, we lived in Arizona, and we got a zoo membership.
Oh,
And because the kids were little, they couldn't manage the zoo for 4 hours.
no.
They could manage the zoo for about an hour.
Yeah.
And because we had a membership and it wasn't very far from home, we went to the zoo all the time.
Oh,
And it would be like, what animals do you want to see? And so on the way there, we would plan out the 3 or 4 animals we were going to see. And then after we'd seen them, we were like, okay, are we done? And they'd go like, oh, no, I think we'll, we can go a little longer, or we couldn't. And that was just like, it was so fun. Like one time, one of our kids got in the zoo magazine, was
Zoo books.
Zoo books.
Yeah,
Yes.
I had zoo books. I had stacks of them. I loved zoo books.
And, just because we're at the zoo all the time.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that one.
Did you
was
see
a
the
lot of fun.
Seymour exhibit at the zoo?
Well, that
very
was the
interesting.
reason we got a membership too, like to the zoo, because when your kids are really little, it is
yeah.
a whole day
Hey.
at the zoo, and they're like, they've got naps and they've got this, and
I get zoo brain.
Yeah.
I can
yeah.
only go to the zoo for
Yes.
an hour, and I can't
Yeah.
take it anymore.
the membership, and it like pays for itself
Right.
after you go like twice,
Yes.
especially if you
Yeah.
have a lot of kids.
Yeah.
So
And then when we moved to Michigan, we got a membership at the Henry Ford Museum in Greenfield
yes.
Village.
that's
And
awesome.
the kids, we went there and went there and went there.
Oh,
So
I would
often.
go there all the time too.
Yeah.
That place is awesome.
Yes. Okay, so we've talked about the kinds of students, kinds of kids who would be ideal kind of homeschoolers or successful homeschoolers, and what kinds of teachers would be. Now let's talk about the reality of homeschooling. You kind of did that already a little bit about talking about how you were spread quite thin, and your day was all consuming. What can you say to anybody who would say, "What's it really like? Really, is it really worth it? What's the reality?"
Like
of
if
it?
they're really thinking
Yeah.
about doing this,
Yeah.
what might be,
Yeah.
I guess, good advice?
I guess, yes.
Like with the reality of what it actually is.
I think you have to make sure that you are in a good place. Like if you're taking on anything new and really big, like, are you in a healthy place? Are you, are you a secure person? Are you calm? Are you able to, like, do you think you would like it? I mean, I've heard moms go, yeah, I think my kid would really thrive, but there's no way. I couldn't do it. Then don't do it.
No.
Yeah.
It's not for you. There are teachers out there who have been well trained and are just amazing for your kids. And when I finally did put my kids in school, and it didn't happen all at once. Some would be in school and some wouldn't. But I remember one of my children had a second grade teacher, and I was like, oh, I want to be you. Oh my goodness, you're so amazing. So you have to really count that cost. That it is. There was a lot I gave up. I mean, there were, I had friends who were like, oh yeah, I'm going to take up, this cool big hobby, and I was like, no can do. And I couldn't. I don't think I was being a martyr. I think I could not do it. It was sort of a them or you. They were going to get all of their fun, or you were going to get all of your fun. And I said, there will be a time when I get to have my fun. And guess when? Right now, honey.
Yeah.
I am living my
dream.
life right now.
Yeah.
And I loved homeschooling. I loved being with them. I loved reading by the fireplace and having a cup of cocoa while you checked math and cuddling on the hammock while you listened to them read and to be honest, falling asleep because they would have to read to me. All of the children had a big requirement of how long they had to read to me every day when they were learning to read. And I do remember falling asleep sometimes when they were reading to me. But
They have such soothing little voices.
they do. They just have soothing voices.
Yes.
But
Well, the bottom line is you enjoyed it.
I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
I did.
That's
And then when I
important.
didn't enjoy it, I was done.
Yes.
And when the kids didn't enjoy it, and when we were done, we were done.
Well,
so you
and
have
I
to
really
know when to stop.
Yeah,
Yes.
because and I really respect the way that you did this too, thinking, okay, because some of your children, when you were talking about it, they would start with the homeschooling, and then you're like, you know what? Now it's time for them to go into the classroom setting. And then if it didn't work, then you would, bring them back home, and having that flexibility, knowing your own kids to be able to say, this is what's best for them right now. And then maybe in a little while, it's not best for them.
Yep.
And I loved that, like your ability to be flexible with that, because, there could be people, and by people, I mean myself. Like if I had done this, I would have been like, I'm proving that I can do this,
Yeah.
And so I really respect that piece of it.
Totally. And I think a lot of times homeschooling happens as a result of desperation. Like I don't know I don't think my child can do it, so I'm going to stay home and I will do it, or there's a pandemic and I have to stay home. And it's like these are not the reasons to do homeschooling. I mean, as you said, there are professionals out there and amazing teachers, and your child can do it.
Yeah. And it was such a relief when the kids went to school to see what amazing teachers they had.
Yes.
That, I mean, I felt like I did a good, solid job. They were well educated. But then I sent them to school, and it was like, oh my goodness, like one of my kids had such an amazing chemistry teacher. They decided that they would major in chemistry. And I'm like, I never could have given them that. Never, not in 100 years, And another had such an amazing drama teacher that one went on to be in drama for years after that. And it was so lovely and wonderful to send them to school and see other people pick up the baton.
That's right.
And do such a great job with them.
Yeah. So I never knew Laura's kids when they were homeschooled. I only knew them after they came to school. And I can attest that they are 7 of the most wonderful, well-adjusted, fun.
Yes, I only know one.
Very fun kids.
And I've enjoyed working with him before.
Yes.
And we laugh a lot.
Yes.
And
so you did a great job, Laura.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you.
beautiful. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap this up? Words of wisdom.
I think the other thing is I wouldn't school because of guilt or obligation. If you feel like you have a child that is not getting what they need, and you don't feel like homeschooling is something that you could be good at, don't push that. There are other options. I mean, let me tell you, there are options. My kids have been through almost every kind of schooling, that is out there. And it did take some looking, but I found really, really great support. And I felt so loved, really, when I could bring my student in. I mean, I had, students that had real difficulties. And when they could say, oh, I love your little one.
Yeah.
They're great. We'll get them through it.
Yeah.
The first time I saw one of the teachers, and this child was having a really hard day, and the teacher grabbed this one and said, it looks like a hard day for you. You be right next to me today. We're going to be buddies and get through this. I mean, literally, I was crying walking out the door going, teachers are amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They are. They're just amazing people. And
and that's perfect. That's a great way to end that.
Well, and I think too, I think it's a perfect way to end it. I am not adding to that because I am not. But what I was going to ask is maybe you had, and we can maybe include links. For our listeners, if you had some good resources, we can include links of if people are considering it, like things to consider, some things that you found helpful, and we can include those links to any resource. Really not telling you yes or no, or it's just the pros and cons. And so if you had any helpful resources, I know some of our listeners would probably really like that. So we can include those.
Sounds good.
Great. Yeah. All right. Well, it's great talking with you.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So insightful.
You're an inspiration.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Hey, Katie, did you know that August 26th is Women's Equality Day?
I did.
You did? How did you know that?
Because I have my notes in front of me.
And I'll ask you another question.
Okay.
And I know you just looked at the notes, so you know the answer to
No,
it.
I'm going to forget it.
So what is the importance of women's equality? Why did it come about? Why do we have Women's Equality Day?
I don't know. Please explain.
Well, I think it's because it has something to do with the 19th Amendment, which has to do with voting, right? So
Yes.
women's suffrage, and the 19th Amendment, which is 100 years old now. I think I read that. Is that right?
wow.
I think that's correct. This is the 100th year anniversary.
Which actually isn't that long when you think about it.
Not
No,
long enough.
right.
But that was the amendment that granted women the right to vote. And so because of that, I think that's a super important thing. Of course, we have a contest.
Da, 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 da.
Yes.
With prizes?
Oh my goodness, Laura, I'm so
Oh,
glad
we've
you
got
asked.
prizes. You get a prize, and you get a prize.
This is an amazing prize. It is a $100 Visa gift card.
Wow.
Now, how do you get this? We're going to give you, Katie and I are going to give you a few facts about a woman of history, that exemplifies Women's Equality Day.
Okay.
So we're going to give some facts, and of course, we're not going to say the person's name. That's your job to contact us and tell us who you think this person is. Okay? And so,
and
I have a question. This is the first person to email or send. So it's a race.
so time is of the essence, friends.
Yes.
All right.
So the first person to
Get on
email
it.
or send a voicemail
Yeah.
with the correct woman wins a $100 Visa gift card from Brainspring.
Can I do it?
No.
You thought about it first.
I was thinking, how could you get away with that? But I'm not going to encourage that.
Because I have the answer.
Okay.
Arr, I have the answer.
Oh no! Now we're including. Now we have. Maybe we should ask these in pirate. No, that might be too confusing. All right.
I can't.
Okay. So I will give you the first, and then Katie, you can do the second. We'll go back and forth. We
Okay.
have four not fun facts, but 4 facts about this important woman in history. The first is this person was one of the original founders of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP.
Second,
Yes.
she started the first African American kindergarten in Chicago.
Ooh.
Oh, how sweet
So,
is that?
so I love that because not only was she an important person as far as the 19th Amendment goes, but she also was really into education.
Yes.
Amazing. All right, next fact. In 2020, this person was awarded a posthumous Pulitzer Prize for her outstanding and courageous reporting on the horrific and vicious violence against African Americans during the era of lynching.
Oh, my.
Yes.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. And last fact, Katie.
All right, the last one. She took part in the first suffrage parade in Washington, D.C. in 1913. When asked to march at the back of the procession because she was black, she refused.
Yes. Okay, so those are your 4 facts about our special woman for Women's Equality Day. So again, the first person to email or send a voicemail with the correct name wins $100.
Cha-ching!
Hey, all right. All right.
Remember then that was a saying?
Cha-ching.
Cha-ching!
Yeah.
Anybody? That was like the 90s?
Yeah,
I'm getting
cha-ching.
some, yeah. do you remember?
Cha-ching, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
I knew that.
That was such a stupid
That means
fact
we're in
that
the
I
money.
just said.
I'm in the money now, right?
Yeah, there we go. Cha-ching! Okay.
All right. So,
all right.
we are going to have links in the description of this podcast. So,
Yeah.
as a reminder, check those out. And remember that you can contact us through the links there. Also, there's an email option, podcast@brainspring.com, which will also be linked in the description that you can get a hold of us that way as well.
And in the voicemail.
Yes?
And if you're having trouble finding any of that information,
Yes?
then you could just go to our website to find out more.
Okay.
And then follow us on social media.
Yeah, we have all of it again. As
Yes.
usual, we have Facebook and all that good stuff. So follow us there.
Everything.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Laura.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This was really, really interesting, and I know people are going to find this very helpful.
Absolutely. I have a last quote for you.
Oh, I was trying to be so,
Okay, are you ready?
I couldn't come up with a pirate thing.
Always be yourself, unless you can be a pirate. Then always be a pirate.
Yes. Thank you for that.
That's a good one.
Those pirate words of wisdom. All
Okay.
right. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.